What's happening, all you Minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at these particular collected editions coming out this week from Marvel Comics. So let's get started. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have all kinds of different collected editions. We have an Epic collection, we have some trade paperbacks, we have a Saga book, and we have a Treasury edition. Now, before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on January 24th or 25th, depending on where you get your books. As always, I will leave a timestamp in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're wondering about a particular collection or don't want to know any type of spoilers when even looking at a book could spoil something for you. So that will be in the description of the video, and before going any further, smash that like button, please. Subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. That seriously goes a long way for us here on the channel. Alright, today we're going to kick it off with this really fun series, Iron Cat. So we are kicking off this week with Iron Cat. What an interesting name for a book. This one retailing for $17.99 and containing the 5-issue miniseries. Normally I would call something like this one printed in America, by the way, so that means it's this thicker glossy paper that they're using. Normally I would call this stupid fun, but it's not stupid. It actually is a pretty smart book, but it's lots of fun. I will say that. I really enjoyed Jed MacKay's Black Cat series, and this is a continuation of that series, exploring the character, or rather the armor of Iron Cat, and tying it in to older issues of Spectacular Spider-Man. So we have a flashback scene here between the Black Fox and this young lady, as well as Black Cat Felicia before she was really the Black Cat. Now, somebody has stolen the Iron Cat costume, or the armor rather, from Tony Stark. Apparently after it was destroyed, and this was all during the Jed MacKay Black Cat series, he decided to go back and repair it. And I love the reasoning he gives her why he repaired it. And it's because if he's not doing something constructive, then he's afraid he might go back to drinking. I thought that was definitely a way to understand the character, and we've seen that before with other writers and the way they deal with Tony Stark. Because when I'm asked like what some of my favorite Tony Stark issues are, or Iron Man issues are, I do have a hard time suggesting those. Unlike Wolverine or X-Men or Avengers or Spider-Man, you know, the top 10 lists are so easy to fill out. With Iron Man, there are only a few writers that really understand the character, and I thought that was a really good explanation. Now, of course, she ends up getting her own costume. There's a twist and turn here that happens, and I don't want to spoil that. And the bonding between Tony Stark and Felicia is really believable. Like, the reasoning he's going to help her, and the reason she's going to help him to track down this armor, who stole it, who's underneath the armor. But the reasoning why they're helping each other, I thought, was a really nice touch. This book has 128 pages. This will be included in the omnibus. Let's go back here to the back, where we have some variant covers. So yes, this will be included in the upcoming omnibus that comes out later this year. And when I first saw the armor, I was like, this is so ridiculous and dumb. It's not going to work. And for some reason, I really ended up enjoying this book. Demon Days. This is the Peach Momoko story that has been previously collected in Treasury Edition, and we'll be looking at a Treasury Edition here in a second. This is a beautiful story. It's a reimagining of the clan Yashida, but not just Mariko, also other characters show up here. This is Demon Days X-Men, so it does collect the one-shots, Demon Days Mariko, Demon Days X-Men, as you see here, Demon Days Cursed Web, Demon Days Rising Storm number 1, Demon Days Blood Feud, King in Black number 4, just the Demon Days prelude, and then Elektra, Black, White, and Blood number 4, just material from that. because those are an anthology, which we'll be looking at here in a little bit. So what this is, and the Astonishing Melanie and I actually did an overview of Demon Days, the Treasury edition, if you want to get a more in-depth overview of what exactly this is. But just to kind of give you a quick premise, this is a reimagining of all of these Marvel characters in this feudal Japan era. Japan! All of it written by Peach Momoko with her beautiful artwork, and my goodness, it really does take us back to this feudal Japan type of stories. And I want to say, honestly, sometimes it reads less like a manga and more like an American comic, even though it's featured in Japan and the characters here are reimagined to look like manga type of characters. So you have characters like Mystique, you have characters like Black Widow, and they all have their own Japanese names and their own Japanese backgrounds and lore. It's a beautiful book. Couple of guest appearances, and I remember the Astonishing Melanie and I arguing over one particular character that shows up here, and I was like, well, it's obviously this character, and she did not agree with me, but I think in the comments section you all said that it was supposed to be that character. Now, the cool thing, much like the Treasury edition, all the way in the back, we have the yokai files, and this one here is printed in the US, so that means it's using this. I don't necessarily think this one is thicker. This actually feels a little thinner than the Canadian books that are printed, but it's a slicker, glossy paper. So this is the yokai list. This tells you about the demons that will be appearing in here, or them talking about the particular goblins or orcs that appear through here, demons that are known as yokai. So here are the variant covers all the way in the back. I wish they were all splash pages because there are some beautiful, beautiful covers here. And then we get some sketches and character designs, including some characters that will appear through the series and who they're supposed to be. And I mean, most of the time, if you've been reading the Marvel comics for a while, you can probably guess who some of these characters are. Now, this book retails for $19.99, and it has 205 pages. Hey, there's the Peach Momoko Marvel portfolio, which is a beautiful portfolio. But that is Demon Days. Next up is Wild Cards, Drawing of the Cards, or The Drawing of Cards. So this is an adaptation of George R.R. Martin's novels. I believe it's the first two novels put into two comics or two graphic novels. This one also printed in the US. And this is written by Paul Cornell with artwork for the first two issues by Mike Hawthorne, and then Enad Balam is doing the art for the last two issues. It's adapted from these stories right here. And then there is additional material. I've never read Wild Cards. I had no idea what the book series was about. I did read the Song of Ice and Fire, but that was because I think everybody was reading it after that first season of Game of Thrones. Unless you were one of the cool kids that had been reading it long before Game of Thrones Season 1. But anyway, this is the same writer who, of course, wanted to break it into comics and was turned down. I believe, was it Neil Gaiman that turned him down too? But anyway, he went on to do novels, and now look, we're getting an adaptation of his novel in comic book format. The story's pretty simple. It's about this particular race right here. These are the people from the planet Takis that are about to drop this bomb in New York City. So this takes place in the 1940s. As a matter of fact, this is 1946, New York City, September 15th. Now, this is 3 weeks before that happens, and it's up to this guy, Tachyon, to warn everybody here on Earth what's coming. Because what this bomb is going to do is, all of this, I'm sure most of you can guess, it's an alternate history. So this alien weapon, this bomb that they're going to drop, will make humans be infected with this alien wild card virus, as they call it. And they can either get powers, I guess become sort of like mutants, or they can just die. You have those two options. Some of the ones that will survive will become part of these mutated race that will go with the aliens. I think those are called aces. And those are the ones that end up with superpowers. So, like I said, sort of like mutants. It's a pretty interesting concept, But when you've been reading comics for so long, it's one that you've probably have seen over and over again. And I assume when the book came out, I mean, there was more than one, so I'm sure it's got a huge fan following. So yeah, it was an okay story. I like the fact that it took place in 1946. We meet this character right here of Bobby, who is kind of like your ace pilot that's going to try to stop the weapon from coming. But of course, since they can kind of see into the future, they know the weapon will eventually be detonated. So some characters end up getting powers, some a lot cooler than others. So that's all I will say about that. This is the second half of the book. There are a few little short stories all the way in the back that are just a couple of pages, 2 to 3 each. And they're done by different creators. And in between these is where you're going to find the variant covers. So this collects all 4 issues of the wild cards. And it has 112 pages and retails for $17.99. Be sure not to miss these original Wild Cards graphic novels right here from Bantam Books. So you also get some character designs back here. I do like the back of the book. It looks like a newspaper clipping from the 1940s. Now here's a series that I'm sure if you've been watching my channel for a while, you've seen my daughters and I review the first book. We got to announce the little digest-sized graphic novel. I got to interview Scotty Young about this, and we did an overview of the oversized hardcover, but here it finally is in trade paperback format, collecting the first 12 issues of Strange Academy, and that is the Strange Academy. I believe this one is dubbed Year 1, and it is a trade paperback retailing for $39.99. We're going to be taking a little look at it here because I've talked a lot about this. I've really enjoyed this series, and this introduces us to the concept of what if Doctor Strange decided to open up a sorcery academy, a magic academy in the Marvel Universe. What kind of teachers would you see through here? So you are going to see a lot of characters that have been previously in Marvel Comics, and you're going to see a lot of new characters. Basically, the kids are all new, and all these kids are being taught by a lot of the sorcerers. Sometimes these characters were evil at one point, but now they're on the side of the angels and have become teachers. And this is the first 12 issues, and it's a wonderful series. The artwork in here is so beautiful by Humberto Ramos, and the colors here, oh my gosh, by Delgado are just amazing. It really, really helps make these characters come to life. So you are going to see some legacy characters, or what we call legacy characters. All the little extras are in between the issues, just like in the previous releases. All the variants are in the back. So not only are they going through teenage trouble and drama, they're also dealing with going into a different plane of existence, going into the future, fighting off evil wards, fighting off your legacy of what you're supposed to be when you grow up. So it's a lot of fun. For people that have not read it, this is one of the best new books that Marvel has put out. And hopefully, I would love to see this collected in an omnibus one day. But I also don't want it to be over, because I know they're working on year 2 currently. Now, let's look in the back for some extras. So here's the design variants. This is the design for the kids. And of course, the variant covers back here by different creators like Ryan Ottley and Sarah Pichelli, Francisco Herrera. And they're... that Adrian Alfona, I love that cover. Makes me miss Runaways and Miss Marvel. And I love these Arthur Adams covers right here of all of these new characters. Like this is Emily and Doyle. You can get to know them here. My favorite character for me is Doyle. And my daughter's, my oldest daughter loves Desi. And you do see characters come back here from other Doctor Strange books. Now, something happens in year 2 that changes the story up a little bit. 304 pages, retailing for $39.99. And it is spine watching time. That's right, it's time to take a look at all of the spines coming out with the books, because spines do come attached to books. Not sure where I was going with that, but just here to remind you to hit that like button, please. Very small thing you can do that goes a long way for us. Alright, let's continue with the overviews. Next up, my favorite Avengers villain finally gets his own big collection. We've had Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, or Kang, time and time again, but this is one that doesn't say Avengers, it just says Kang, the Saga of the once and future Conqueror. Now, I was hoping they would go the route of Phoenix and Loki and give us an omnibus treatment of this, but I can wait, and this is a good start. And it's one heck of a collection. I wish they had added a couple of more things from the past, but I understand, oh my gosh, choosing and picking these stories can be confusing, especially if you know the character of Kang, especially if you know his relations to all these other characters that he's been in the past. So we start off with Fantastic Four, number 19, this issue right here. That is the first appearance of Ramatut. Now, what does that character have to do with Kang? Well, you can figure that out for yourself, I think, because it just happens that he's appearing in this issue. But the next big book in here is this character's first appearance, and that is Kang's first appearance from Avengers number 8. So that is collected in here. So this shows our arch nemesis here fight against the Avengers for the very first time. And then we do this big dramatic jump. I mean, we go all the way to 2015 with this all-new Avengers number 13. So let's talk about this. This collects Fantastic Four number 19, Avengers number 8, all-new, all-different Avengers number 13, Avengers, the 2016 relaunch, 1 through 6, Avengers Back to the Basics number 5 and 6, Moon Knight Annual from the 2019 series number 1, Symbiote Spider-Man, the King in Black 5-issue miniseries, Fantastic Four 35, the A story, and finally collected Timeless number 1, which to a lot of people that ending was a big shocker. What I wish they had done in between the issue of Avengers number 8 and these issues of Avengers, and I don't have any issues with it. I love Mark Waid's Avengers run. I know it's not one that a lot of people talk about, but it should, because it's got beautiful artwork too by Mike Del Mundo. But I wish they had collected some stories that featured like the Scarlet Centurion, or what was the other? Immortus, of course. But Victor Timely, that's the other character I was thinking about. Because he goes by many aliases, and his connections to those characters is kind of unique and really interesting and complicated. So, like I said, it must have been a task to pick out the best stories of Avengers, or pick out the best stories that feature the character of Kang. This one here, I do like the stories that they pick out. The only one that I thought was really interesting that I did not even think about was this story of Back to the Basics, the one that features Kamala Khan. Because when I think of Khan and going back in time, like, this story for me just gets forgotten. I'm glad that it's in here. Not sure if I would have chosen it, though, over other stories. The Moon Knight Annual, that's a prime example of how he's used in modern times. This here, if you've not read it, Peter David and Greg Land have been telling this amazing, no pun intended, amazing story of Spider-Man in his past when he was wearing the black outfit, the alien costume, the symbiote costume, if you will. And this doesn't pull any punches. So even with a King in Black, which was present time, and you know that Spider-Man's not wearing his black outfit during the present time, so how does this story fit in? Well, we go back to the past. And who better to take us there than Kang the Conqueror? This time around, though, he's not so much a villain. Like, this gives you the idea that Kang is kind of a complex character. He's not like your one-dimensional type of villain. It's not about ruling all time and space. Well, okay, sometimes it is. But other times it's about setting things right. Not that he's like Dr. Sam from Quantum Leap. But more like he has to set things right to make sure that he can rule over it and his future still happens. There's some Young Avengers stories that I think that could have benefited from being in here too. I do love the addition of Monica Rambeau right there in this particular story that ties into the King in Black. Here's the Fantastic Four story from issue number 35. And then we get a very nice surprise, which is the Timeless story arc in here, which is a freaking awesome story. And look at that cover right there. that is a beautiful cover. That is Ken Lashley. While Ken Lashley doesn't do the internal artwork, it is Kev Walker, whom I love ever since he was doing the Thunderbolts, and then he did Avengers Arena. He comes over from the 2000 AD Rebellion. Greg Land doing some of the artwork in here too. It is written by Jen McKay, and it's a very interesting story shaping the future of Marvel, the Marvel as we know it now. So much so that there's a big reveal at the end of the final, or of the one shot, that people were like, Omar, I remember my viewers messaging me, have you seen this? No, I haven't. Please don't say anything. And of course, it's the internet. Things just pop up. It got spoiled for me. But it's still a pretty cool promise or idea of what's to come. This is a big book. This one is 512 pages, and it retails for $44.99. So it is one of those Saga books that feels like an epic collection. Here, we'll look at just a couple of extras in the back, like the things to come in the Marvel Universe. And here we go. There. Yes, $44.99, 512 pages. Thicker than a Snicker. Or at least as thick as an Epic Collection, which is what we're talking about next. This is the Ant-Man Giant Man Epic Collection, Volume 2. 7 years, I think, in between Volumes 1 and 2. This is the latest reprint of Volume 1. This one comes out next week, so I'll be doing an overview next Tuesday of this book. But here's Volume 2. My goodness, it's finally out. Let's see how they look together. There we go. Yeah. Look at that spine. So nice. But it is finally out. This collects the rest of Ant-Man during this time. And one thing you're going to notice are the years. 1964 to 1979. Usually with Epic Collections, they're about 1 or 2 years at most. Collecting stories from these characters, but since Ant-Man didn't have his own ongoing series, and series were getting canceled that he was featured in, well, hence the different dates or the big gap in the years. Here's all of your stories that are going to be collected in here. Your creators like Stan Lee, Mike Friedrich, Chris Claremont, Bill Mantlo, Herb Trimpe, Pete Craig, Russell, George Tuska, and John Byrne, and let's not forget Bob Powell. And actually, Carlos Burgos. And Bob Powell, the reason I mentioned him was because I remember a few years ago I was looking at, I believe it was a Tales to Astonish backup story. And it just, I thought it was John Byrne, like a young John Byrne, but no, it was Bob Powell. So you can see how much John Byrne borrowed from Bob Powell, too, and looking at some of those early issues. So we kick it off with some Tales to Astonish. We do have issues 60 through 69 in here. Then we have Marvel Feature 4 through 10, Power Man 24 and 25, Black Goliath 1 through 5, that's the 5-issue miniseries, Champions 11 through 13, Marvel Premiere 47 through 48, and material from Iron Man number 44. So something you're going to notice in here, just by naming off those issues, is that this is not just the story of Hank Pym, because we do have Bill Foster, since I mentioned the Black Goliath series and Power Man issues, and also the first appearance of Scott Lang, the new Ant-Man. So during these Tales to Astonish issues, it is Giant Man. Hank Pym goes as Giant Man, and it's pretty much him and Janet helping out different aliens and going on different missions and side stories away from the Avengers. It's a really fun time for Hank Pym, and since he didn't have his own ongoing series, unlike Thor, unlike Captain America, and unlike Iron Man, they gave him the spotlight here in the Tales to Astonish. So it's basically him and Wanda, like I mentioned, going on missions. He creates new technology. Sometimes he's Giant Man, and later on he becomes Ant-Man, depending on the type of mission they go on. Now, of course, Tales to Astonish went on and got renamed and renumbered because of the Incredible Hulk. So this didn't last long. But we next see him in a series of books. Actually, no, he shows up in Invincible Iron Man number 44, like the backup pages. There's Hank with his newer outfit. And then he shows up in a series of Marvel features, The Astonishing Ant-Man. And these are really interesting stories back here because it feels like they were cashing in on the incredible Shrinking Man at the time. It's just Hank's costume goes away for a while and it becomes something completely different. And he gets stuck being small. So he's trying to survive in this world being this tiny little person with a brand new costume. He does get a little bit of a sword. Janet does come to help, but then she turns on him because, well, villains make her turn on him. And eventually, of course, they get out. Now, what I didn't know is until you get to the back, there is some deleted stuff or some ideas that they had for Ant-Man. Here's the story with Power Man, where actually Bill Foster shows up as sort of a villain and has to fight Power Man over this lady that they both have an eye for. And then Bill Foster gets his own ongoing series, the Black Goliath series. He becomes the new Giant Man with a different name. And after that, some of that story gets wrapped up in the Champions. And it wasn't until I started reading these that I thought, man, there's an epic collection series that hasn't happened yet. The Champions. How's that not happened? Or I guess Omnibus. But yes, those particular characters haven't been collected in epic format. Not yet. Not as of this video. And here we have some young John Byrne early artwork. And then we wrap it up with more John Byrne. And that is the first appearance of Scott Lang stealing Ant-Man's costume and then eventually getting the approval of Hank Pym to become the new Ant-Man. Because during that time, Hank Pym was going as Yellow Jacket. All the way in the back, we have some original art pages back here. And this is the original idea for the ending of those stories from the Marvel feature. I covered It Had to Be Changed by Bob Layton because of the costume. And then an original piece of art right there. This is another big one. This is a book that has 504 pages. This one retailing for $44.99. And that is Ant-Man, Giant Man, Epic Collection 2. Last but certainly not least is the Elektra Black, White, and Blood Treasury Edition. I am loving these big books. The next one that's coming out is the Hulk Grand Design Treasury Edition. Just cracked it open and start reading it this past week. But this one here is a little bit different. This is an anthology series. So let me just show you how big this is. Here it is compared to the size of a trade paperback. So these are your standard size trade paperbacks that are the trim size of a comic book. So they're pretty big. And we've done an overview of other Black, White, and Blood Treasury Edition books. And we have a John Romita Jr. piece up here and a Peach Momoko piece. So we've done Carnage, we've done Deadpool and Wolverine. I know is there a Black Widow? I think there's a Black Widow and a Moon Knight and I think a Star Wars one. Please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm just making up. Black Widow makes sense, right? She's perfect for this. So it is an anthology series, and this collects all 4 issues of the Elektra Black, White, and Blood. This is how it's broken down. Each issue has 3 different stories by 3 different creative teams. So you have a total of 12 in here because, you know, basic math. Here's the cover to issue number 1. And the only colors that are allowed to use, as you guessed it, or as you've probably seen before, are even different tones, though, are white, black, and red for blood. But the narrative boxes sometimes have yellow narrative boxes. All of them taking place in different times of Elektra's life. Sometimes it feels like it's an alternate history. And again, different creators. Sometimes it's like a different incarnation of the character of Elektra with beautiful, big artwork. The paper stock is this thick, glossy paper. The book has 136 pages and retails for $29.99. There are a couple stories I want to show here in a sec. Actually, I want to focus on 2 stories. Let me just show you this Greg Land artwork and moving on to the next story, which is the one I want to talk about. Not this one. This is the Rob Reyes story, but this is the story I wanted to talk about. This one's called Yokai, and it is by Greg Smallwood. So, one thing I want to just go ahead and clarify is that his artwork has been restored to his original art. I know that, I believe he took it to Twitter because people were messaging me what I thought about it. I hadn't even seen it because I'm sorry, I don't tweet, so I don't know about these things until a lot later. But apparently the art was altered by the editors at the time, I think, and he was upset about it. But his art, rest assured, because I did a comparison, is back to what he originally drew it, and it was mainly the eyes. That's what the issue was. But this is his art untouched, the way that he drew it, so that's awesome. I'm glad that they decided to go that route. And all of it, including this right here, which I remember this creature was covered up, but it's back to looking the way that he drew it. And the way it looked when it was covered up looked absolutely horrible. But the other story I wanted to touch upon is the story by Peach Momoko, which is in the 4th volume. This one right here. I love this story. This is the Assassin, which is featured in the gallery edition of Demon Days. But it's one that's just an awesome story with this type of artwork. No dialogue, and you just get the idea of the full story just based on the art alone and following the sequential art. There are a lot of artists out there that are talented when it comes to cover art, and they use Peach Momoko a lot for her cover art, but my goodness, she can tell a sequential story too. Here are all the variants in the back, all in splash pages, including another Peach Momoko. The book has 136 pages, and again, retails for $29.99. Parental advisory, mainly due to that violence, by the way. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collected editions coming out this week. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up. Are you a collector of the Treasury edition? Are you going to pick up the Saga of Kang? And hopefully one day we get an omnibus. Or maybe even an omnibus one day of Ant-Man / Giant Man. Anyway, I would love to know all those answers in the comments down below. And if you yourself have any questions, leave them down below. And everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.